What's up guys, I am streaming on Twitch right now for a few hours once this video goes live, so go ahead and click the link in the comment description and come and watch. If you miss out on this stream, go ahead and follow, that way you don't miss out on the next one. And in today's video, we're going to be going over the new perk Frenzy, which is kind of like the new hot damage perk that everyone's going for in the season and comes on all the new battleground weapons. What it does is being in combat for an extended time increases damage, handling, and reload for this weapon until you are out of combat. In this video, we're going to be testing exactly how to proc this perk and how to keep it procced, and also going over the 3 things it increases. So let's go ahead and begin trying to figure out how to proc this perk. So if I go ahead and swap off of it and swap back onto it, make sure I didn't have it going at all. If I'm just standing next to enemies, it does not seem to proc it, so being near enemies is not enough to be in combat. It's going to take a little bit more than just being near enemies to proc this perk. So what else can we do? Well, we can try just shooting at a target and see what happens. So we just shoot at these war beasts and start a timer to see how long it takes. It's going to take quite a while to proc the perk, but just shooting at a target is enough. And it seems to be from the first time you do damage, it's 12 seconds to proc Frenzy. So right there, we were just like kind of tapping away. So I wonder if we shoot faster and do more damage, if it'll proc faster. So is it like X amount of damage to proc the perk to be considered in combat? And as you see, it does not appear to be like that at all. It's just 12 seconds from the first time you do damage. So no matter how much damage you're doing, it takes 12 seconds from the first time you do damage. Well, what if you're receiving damage? Does that put you in combat even quicker? And as you saw, my well being placed to damage, so I started a timer then. But then if I let the war beast hit me, it still takes roughly 12 seconds to proc Frenzy. So it doesn't seem like it matters if you're doing damage or receiving damage. Either or will take 12 seconds to proc Frenzy from the first time you either receive or deal the damage. The last thing to really test is if you do damage and receive damage at the same time, is it quicker? And as you might expect, at this point it does not. It still takes 12 seconds. So moving on from that, it seems like it takes 12 seconds no matter what. Once you have the perk, if you don't do damage or receive damage, it'll fall off after 5 seconds. And just like something like Rampage, as long as you're doing damage or receiving damage once every 5 seconds, you'll keep the perk procced and will not fall off, and will reset that 5-second timer over and over again. So once you get the perk, as long as there's a stream of outgoing or incoming damage, you'll have the perk pretty much forever until there is a 5-second downtime of either of the things. And one of the coolest things about this Frenzy perk is that you do not need the weapon with the perk on itself out to proc the perk. It can be stored and it will still proc the perk after that 12 seconds, which is very good for things like the rocket launcher and even the sniper rifle, where you're not going to be wanting to have that weapon out for 12 seconds just to proc the perk. You can proc it with someone else, then pull out the rocket launcher and be good to go. So now that we know how to proc the perk and keep the perk, looking at the increased damage, handling, and reload speed, and kind of comparing that to a few other perks in the game to see how it stacks up, the first one I want to test is going to be the damage perk. So if we look at the damage on Carl without it, we hit 1372. Now we go ahead and proc Frenzy, and now hits 1646, which is going to be a 20% increase, which isn't a huge amount, but considering the fact that you get it pretty easily and will have it forever, that is pretty good. Then the base reload of this SMG is 2.3 seconds. Now we go ahead and proc Frenzy and do it again. The reload speed will be much quicker at 1.3 seconds, which is going to be a 43% faster reload. So this perk is pretty much Rampage times 2 and Feeding Frenzy all in one. Then the last thing this perk will do is increase the handling speed, which is going to be swap speed and also ADS speed. So once you have Frenzy, the weapon just feels a lot snappier. It swaps instantly, then also ADS is a lot quicker. So with Frenzy, you have 20% more damage, you have pretty much max reload speed, and also it's very snappy. So Instantly Frenzy is pretty much some of the best perks in the game all combined at once. It's a damage perk like Rampage, mixed with a reload perk like Feeding Frenzy, mixed with Quick Draw for handling speed. So it's pretty much 3 of the best perks, maybe toned down to like 80% of their values, all in one. And this perk comes on all the new battleground weapons, so the SMG, the bow, the sidearm, the sniper, the linear fusion, and also the rocket launcher. And on the primary weapons, it's a very solid damage perk and will give you max reload speed. But then on the specials and heavies, it is pretty much the best damage perk. As we showed off in the previous video with code Duello, it is the highest damage buff on the weapon, with lasting impression being 1% lower, then even some of the cluster bombs being 10 to 15 below the damage increase of Frenzy. Then for snipers and the linear fusion, there is only one sniper left in the game with Fire and Flame that hasn't been sunset. So outside of that one, Frenzy is going to be the highest damage buff for either snipers or linear fusion rifles. The only thing that comes close would be Vorpal, and that's going to be 15% compared to the 20% of Frenzy. So even though Frenzy isn't the highest damage percent for primaries, it is pretty much the highest damage perk for the specials and heavies, which makes it automatically pretty much the go-to. Then given the fact that it is pretty realistic to proc Frenzy on those weapons for a boss fight, because of the fact that you don't even need to have them out, all you have to do is be doing damage beforehand or receiving damage beforehand to make sure you have it going. Then you'll have it for the entire boss fight because you'll be hitting the boss with the weapon every 5 seconds and keep it going. So for example, in the Deep Stone Crypt, I think it's very realistic to have Frenzy on either of the specials or the heavy pretty much for the entire Taniks boss fight, because there's a lot of enemies, you'll be doing damage, receiving damage, and you'll have Frenzy going into the fight. So yeah, Frenzy is pretty much the best damage perk for specials and heavies. And coming back to the topic of the primaries, obviously there are higher damage increases. For example, Rampage is 30, One for All is 35, then even something like Multi-Kill Clip times 3 is 50%, so there's definitely a higher percent damage perks, but 20% on the SMG and the sidearm feels like it's more than enough. Then given the fact that it's also pretty much max reload speed and the handling, it kind of frees up the left slot of those weapons. Usually you would want, you know, Outlaw, Rapid Hit, or something like that in the left slot. But now that Frenzy has that reload speed built in, you can kind of use something like Overflow or even something like Killing Wind in the left slot. And neither one of those perks will increase your reload speed, but you don't really need that in the left slot anymore. So I can imagine one day if there's like something with Wellspring or Dim on the left slot, then Frenzy in the right slot, that would pretty much be my god roll right off the bat. I would love a roll like that in the future. And overall, like I said earlier, to sum up Frenzy, you pretty much take Rampage, Feeding Frenzy, and also Quick Draw, and turn all three of those perks down to like 75-80%, then combine them all into one perk at the same time, and that is pretty much what Frenzy is. So that pretty much means, without saying, that Frenzy is without a doubt one of the best perks in the entire game, and it really works well in activities like Battlegrounds, which is, you know, the seasonal event, so it makes sense that it came out this season. So yeah, I would definitely say it's one of the best perks in the entire game, and let me know what you think about Frenzy. Anyways, the rest of the video will just be some Strike gameplay. Thanks for watching, catch you guys next time.